experience.
All righty. Welcome to editing. Yes, yes, you need it. So during the 3 o'clock hour, we'll have three authors speaking, and in the reading lounge, we have three. We have Rena Mallory taking over. Crush wants to thank Harlot Oscara for sponsoring this panel. And thanks, Eliza Black, Gabriela Lizette, and Ellie Desyre. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
What brings you here? No, I'm kidding. Uh, let me get back to the screen that I need here. How important is editing to an indie writer? We're going to go from Eliza to Gabriela to Ellie.
Um, I think it depends. I think the most important thing is the story, and editing a bad story won't make it a good story. But editing a good story will make it even better and be more likely to bring readers back.
That's a perfect answer, actually. Yeah, because you can polish it up all you want, but if it's got plot holes or it's got, things that don't make sense or stories that is not fulfilling readers in some way, the editing is not going to save it.
Yep, I totally agree. I also think it's up to each author and the reach that they want to have and what point in their writing career they might be in. It's about the intended audience, whether it's Literotica or Reddit, FetLife, or you're going straight on for Amazon. There's different level of quality needed at each space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And not everybody needs every type of edit. Like not everyone needs developmental edit.
Right.
So just
because some authors are really good at self-editing and they can tell, I mean, obviously, aside from just spelling and commas and whatever, just knowing where placement of things go, that they have flow and continuity and things like that. They're good with that stuff. They just need, that extra set of eyes that says, okay, did you really mean to say this when, it maybe is this or something along those lines. So yeah, there's different levels and different styles for everybody out there.
Yeah, let me touch on that because what you're saying is people read differently. People read things differently. And if there's another set of eyes on it, it helps the writer convey what they want to say. I like that.
It's hard for a writer a lot of times to find like missing words in their sentences because they know it's supposed to be there. So they'll just put it in their mind. So that's where having another set of eyes, stuff like that also.
So this is a wild question. Do you guys yourselves in your writing use a professional editor or just editing software, or do you just use your own skills in your own practice?
I'm probably the only one who's not a published author here. I come at it from a more amateur side of writing and audio work on Reddit that eventually led me onto Twitter. And the company I was in harnessed my skills as an editor. And so I'm more here as just an editor, not so much as an author.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can say I started as an editor and then moved to being a published author. I I definitely use professionals because I don't trust myself to know um where where my stories are lacking. Um and you can read the CMOs, but it still doesn't mean that you're catching everything when you're going over your same manuscript over and over and over again. So I prefer to have a professional editor
Mhm.
that I can talk to, because you can't talk to software.
You can.
And they can, well, I still wouldn't trust it. Just another human. I like humans. Um, to give feedback on the things that are on the page. So I always recommend professional over software.
I also don't use software because I don't trust software, but I don't use it. Well, my sister does line editing, so she does some of mine, but my first book and my third book, I used just beta readers and I read through it as many times as I needed to be happy with it. But I didn't hire anyone
Mhm.
or use something. And I'm a bad example. Don't be like,
No, but you also bring a skill set, Eliza,
yeah,
right? Like you are an editor to
yeah.
many as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I also started with editing and then moved to writing.
And can I just add one more thing?
Go for it.
Um,
Yeah.
at least use spell check if you're using Word or whatever
Please.
you're writing on.
If there's
Please
a
use spell
squiggled
check
line, yes.
and pay attention to it. Don't ignore them, because that at least will save you some
Yeah,
time and cost if we don't have to sit there and
yeah.
fix your there, and there
Hmm.
throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big deal for me. Um, and then realize that some people are from Europe or from Canada and they just, have different spellings. I mean, they're not incorrect.
Oh,
So,
But there is a setting where you can change where your English is from, so it
yeah,
recognizes it. So
I have to
you
change
have no
mine.
excuse, Ranch. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. What advice do you have for new authors with editing?
Edit,
To do it? No.
do the editing. But don't break the bank doing the editing
Yeah.
because your chances of making back, like, people spend like three, four, $5,000 editing a single book, and you might make it back eventually, but probably not fast. Maybe that.
My recommendation would be to find an editor that you can work well with, somebody who not only knows what they're doing, and you can check references and stuff, but somebody who will respect the author's voice and
Mm-hmm.
not try to change it to fit um the formula or
The
whatever. Like,
style.
yes, yeah, just somebody that respects your voice as an author, somebody who provides constructive criticism and is not just like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking with this? Like, this is trash. Like, you don't want that kind of negativity when you already are your worst self-critic. Um, and you know, it's for samples, I would say. Because not every editor can do everything. There's some people that are better at certain type of editing, and just understand the differences, and see if you work well with that person.
Yeah.
Um,
And my suggestion would be to actually take time to build or form a support network, like be open to using several people, starting off with beta readers. And then you can take it to maybe a line editor and then maybe a proofreader. And don't be afraid in this industry to barter and trade services. It's often the first way to go, especially with self published authors, for sure.
yeah, that was gonna be my next thing is like I trade editing for cover designs because I don't want to pay for cover designs if I don't have to. So that's how I get all of my covers is I trade editing for them.
You can also look for new editors who are just building their portfolios. They'll often start off with gratuitous or much lower rates. They'll also do like free reads to kind of prove their skill set. Logan always says the proof in the pudding.
Yeah. Screen went black. Sorry, hold on one second.
When I first started, I did my first 5, I think, for like $100 each because I wanted a resume, and that got me a resume.
I'm so sorry. My computer just blacked out on me that I've got my questions on. Give me just one second.
No problem. Ranch, I was actually going to ask when you were asking about professional editing versus software. I
Yeah.
was wondering if I could ask, especially the more experienced authors who do editing as well, how many of you have used software like Highland or Scrivener or Evernote, those kind of softwares?
I personally use Grammarly Pro. I just purchased it this year. But I also have to like really look at what it wants me to change because I don't agree with some of the things, and you will lose a lot of your voice if
Yes.
you do everything it tells you to do.
I
You'll
use
like your
grammar.
beats.
I use a Scrivener personally, and I love it. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Eli.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard some authors choose Evernote instead of Scrivener. Is there a big difference?
well, I've never used Evernote, so I'm not in a good place to compare. All I can say is I love Scrivener because of how it's complicated. The manual is thousands of like the PDF is thousands of pages long, but that's because you can do everything. You can like my finished products in terms of how it looks, like how the PDF looks once it's printed, and the chapters and the headers, and it's really beautiful what your final product looks like. It's something that you can proudly put out there and know that it will look just as good as any of the professionally put together books out there.
Yeah, because we're
So
talking about not just editing for typos and punctuation marks. You're talking about shaping it for the final manuscript, like getting it ready. Yeah, and some almost like the planning tools, world building, that kind of thing. Yeah, they can get pretty complicated.
And you can get two different pages of your manuscript up on the screen, one next to the other. Like you can move from chapter to chapter and move things around super easily. It's very friendly for that. But it is like the more you can do with the software, the more complicated it can get. But I'm not going to use anything other than Scrivener for the foreseeable future. Personally, my 2 cents.
Logan says it's important to note that Scrivener is only available for Mac users.
No, that's not
is
true
it?
anymore. No.
It's not?
It's been available for Microsoft for a couple of years now. My wife uses it. I've got a copy of it. Don't really care for it, but no, it's available.
Mobily, it's only available for Mac.
Okay. You just have to buy different licenses.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I know my podcast co-host Alex, he also writes, and he uses, or was telling me the other day that he's using Highland, and I wondered how many other people were using it. He says it's got the Grammarly plugin in it, and it's really good.
I haven't heard of that one.
Well, I have a question from Twitter user Steve real quick. He just sent me, he wants to know, do authors want to know if readers find typos? And if so, what's the best way to handle it?
Do not report it to Amazon.
Do not what?
Don't
Do not report
on
that.
Amazon.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest
Well,
that.
people do that and then books get pulled.
Yeah.
I would want to.
Yeah, I would too, to be honest. I mean, I'm a medium writer most of the time, and if you see something that doesn't, click, DM me or whatever. That's how I feel
It's like
about
an illness for me. I have my red pen all the time, kind of in the back of my head, and I just want to be the polish. I think your piece is amazing, but yeah, if it's got something as obvious as, a little bit of punctuation error or something, then yeah, I usually point it out, but I never know how it lands with the author.
I would want to know as long as you just tell me and not.
Yeah.
I think that the important thing is how you approach it. Like,
Yeah.
don't come at the author saying, "Look, you're stupid. You made a
Yeah.
mistake." Like, mistakes happen. That's kind of, I know I might be jumping ahead, but it's kind of my pet peeves is when um people assume that just because the book was edited, that it means it's 100% error free, that it's not a single typo in the um
Yeah.
entire book, and that's just not the case because we are still human and mistakes happen.
No.
As it was pointed out earlier this week to me that editing proves that you're not using AI to write your stories. I mean, if you find, mistakes in your stories, or if you might find things written peculiarly, it might be because it's the person's voice. And I think that's a great way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
What's an editing trick that you know now that you didn't know at the beginning?
I didn't write anything down for that question because I didn't.
Me neither. I couldn't find one.
Well, I've been told from a few authors the trick I handed out was useful to them was to just read it out to yourself or get someone to read it to you. Just even the first few lines or the first chapter to get a feel for the readability of it.
I'd say especially dialogue, that's good to do because if it sounds weird when you say it out loud, that means it's weird dialogue. Like, it should sound natural if it's dialogue, like you would actually say it.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and another editing trick to differentiate too is using italicizing for that inner monologue so it doesn't confuse the reader.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you have any editing regret in your publishing?
Publishing before it was ready, I would say.
I think that's a universal one, right?
Yes. Like that, that first story that you thought was great, and then you just hit publish, and then you read it again, and it's like, cringe.
Yeah.
I should read that.
Yeah.
I didn't use a beta reader like my first book. I guess it's kind of along the same lines. Like, I just published it. I didn't do beta reads. Like, my sister didn't read it. So it's just out there. I haven't read it since I hit publish, and I don't plan to. So sorry.
Yeah.
I haven't published yet, so I'm just going to say back to the community. I regret not joining a community like Twitter as much as it's dwindling down to nothing. I feel like I was late to building that party, and I regret not jumping into communities. And I hear Discord has some fabulous servers filled with fabulous writers. I see you all nodding your heads. Yeah.
I don't think the Twitter community is dying, but it's I think we have a chance to build it back up.
I think so too. Thanks. I'm glad to hear that, Ranch.
Yeah, I think we can. So you did jump ahead, so you get less points in the game. But what is your editing pet peeves? What are your editing pet peeves? Because I'm working on my grammar.
I started editing because of my pet peeve.
Yeah.
So there are a lot. Everything.
So yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but Eliza Black was one of my first editors personally in my storytelling, and she was brutal. Yes, so very brutal.
I think my biggest pet peeve, and I'm going to be cautious here because I might take Eliza on, but it's the Oxford comma.
It better be that everyone needs to
Yep.
use it.
Nay or nay.
No,
Nay or nay.
no, and this is where we will stand on opposite sides of the fences and hopefully shake hands. But I think it's the most redundant and useless thing out there. And so often I'm now telling authors that I'm on the other side of the fence because otherwise I'll just rip it to shreds in their eyes.
All your clients, they're all going to be so mad.
All right. Welcome to the Thunderdome. We got Ellie on one side and Eliza on the other.
You just let them know that if they need an editor who appreciates a good comma, they can come over here.
Oh no, I will teach them how to grant the power to conjunctive words.
I will say you can avoid using the Oxford comma by rephrasing something. But,
Yes.
And that is sometimes better. I don't disagree there. But if you want that phrasing, you need the comma.
My other pet peeve is authors who lose track of their verbs, their tenses, you know, and all of a sudden it flips from a past tense to current. And I'm like, whoa, 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 what'd you do there? Yeah.
It was
Also,
a time jump. That's what
just
happened.
from like a when you send it to me, I advertise myself as a proofreader. I do a lot of copy editing because I can't help myself, but I advertise as a proofreader. And I get so many like books with the red squiggly lines. You didn't even run spell check. This is not ready for proofreading.
Yeah. So we've reached the halfway point, and the scavenger hunt word. Are you guys writing it down? You got your little pen and paper? Is cowboy.
Of
I don't know who
course it
chose
is.
that.
Hey,
Random.
There's no way I chose it.
I have a fan club on the side.
Oh, did you start an army?
Yeah, yeah, apparently.
I also use the Oxford comma. I also no, I'm joking. It's just like okay.
I'm
we gotta
sorry.
start a vote.
I'm sorry, but if someone can't, like, I see that stupid Martha Stewart meme. I'm like, if you can't understand the context of the sentence within the piece you're reading, you need to go back to the first sentence then and just reread it. Like, no, there isn't. What is that one? The juice on top of the toast? You know, like, no, like, I don't know.
But I'll be honest. Like my biggest problem when I started writing was that I couldn't stop when I would start putting hands on parts of the body. He put his hand here, moving around, and without proper editing and just adding another sentence or just using the and so many times, I stopped all that and I started using the Oxford comma. So that's what I did. I'm gonna go ahead and take some questions from
What
the
is the
audience.
scavenger hunt thing? What does that mean?
So if you're in all the panels and you get all the scavenger hunt words, you win 1,000,000 somethings.
Oh, like we don't have to like find the word somewhere. You just
Yeah, no.
No.
So yeah, let me see if I can go back to this real quick. So I'm going to open it up to everyone. If you have questions for our three editors, you can ask in the comments or you can ask in the vocally. Either one's fine. Let's get some conversation going.
There are some questions already on the chat if you want.
I'm trying to scroll through them now. Thing blew up on me.
The Oxford comma.
Sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What do you recommend for flipping tenses? Like I'm so bad about that. Like terrible. Like in the middle of the story suddenly it's in the past. Like I can't help it. Like so what do you recommend or do you?
The first thing that popped into mind, which would be time consuming, would be to like if you pick like a verb and just do a control find for the past tense or the present tense or whatever tense you don't want of that verb, you might be able to locate like sections of like if you do said instead of say or whatever, you might be able to find like a section where you flipped and then just fix those sections. But I don't know if there's like a quicker way to do it.
I don't have, besides what you said of find and replace, I don't have.
I notice it's usually like a section at a time. Like it flips for, it's not just like a one-time thing, it's a whole section will flip. So if you can find the sections, then you'd be able to fix it. And that might be the best way to do it is just look for the wrong tense on like a word you say all the time, like said or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I've also known some authors who go simply with the yellow sticky on their screen that says this story is in past tense, ed, you know, and leave a little note for yourself, especially if you're returning to a story like a week later or not writing for like a month because of life, you know, then that sticky sometimes helps.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So you like literally put the like ed, like, so it happened in the past or whatever, like on the note. Like that's what I need. Like we need to break it down like kindergarten here because like I'm terrible at it sometimes.
Yeah, unless you use some kind of AI assistant, right, to go in and look and see if you've stuck to the proper tense.
So there's a couple of questions here from Amanda. Do you have a hard time shutting your editor off when you are writing your stories?
Yes.
Is it easier for you to just write them and then just go back?
No.
Or do you just sit there and edit as you go?
Yes.
Edit as you go.
As you go.
I like can't keep going until I'm happy with what I have.
Yeah. And then Vivian asks, how do you feel about editors who change the entire sentence or paragraph or write how they feel that it should be written?
That's part of like changing the author's voice. I feel like that is overall, I would say bad, but if like your sentence is bad, then maybe they're helping. But if you need to rewrite like a whole paragraph, they should just tell you like, hey, this paragraph was confusing. You might want to rephrase parts or whatever. I don't think the editor should be rewriting the whole thing.
Well, that's part of line editing too, right? I mean, I was gonna say
it depends on the type of editing that you're supposed to be getting. Like if this is a proofreader level of editing, they shouldn't be messing with rewriting anything. Like their job is just to make sure it's all clean copy. So I would say it depends on what level of editing you're getting. And if they are, I mean, if it's a developmental, then yes, they're going to show you, okay, this structure doesn't work with this story. You need to consider doing things. So it just really depends on what kind of work they're doing for you.
December Drake asks, within the erotic romance genres, are there tips to finding editors who are comfortable with editing these genres? I find this seems especially important if you're writing transgressive works, which I do. Like, I think all three of you guys are up for that, aren't you?
Hell yeah. And I make sure it's in my profile and on my website that it is a genre I specialize and I'm comfortable with. Yeah. And then I think when you're asking for references, you know, you tend to travel in similar circles and the names get around for which editors are comfortable with which genres.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a part of several Facebook groups that have like editor groups where, you know, they pass clients back and forth when whoever needs a particular type of edit done or particular genre or anything like that. So, you know, networking is probably a big deal for our industry for all kinds of services.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me because they've like heard about me from my current clients so they know already that I will do whatever they wrote. But I also have it in my profile.
Yeah, and it's important to spread out because I know that you can find a lot of different sources through Facebook and through X. I mean, you know, it's definitely, you know, Spread yourself out there. So, what is your advice for new editors trying to make? Oh, it just moved. Doggone it! It moved.
Trying to make editing
Editing their day job. Yeah.
it's not my day job. I don't have advice.
It's not my day job either.
Yeah,
You got
not
to be
mine
hustling,
either.
hustling,
Yeah.
hustling, hustling.
Oh.
I don't have advice for making it your day job, but for like building your client list, what I did that seemed to work was start cheap. Like look up the standard prices for whatever type of editing and then set them a little bit lower and then maybe offer a discount on top of that. Like I said, I did my first like 5 books, novels for like $100, flat fee, whatever the word count. And then that was 5 books that I had on my website that I had done. So if you can build the client list to a point where you have like regular people coming back to you, then you'll have a better idea of what your income would be if you did try to make it full time. See how it goes.
Peter
Also,
asks.
it's important.
No, you
Oh,
go ahead. You go.
I was gonna say, highlight what experience you have that you're bringing as an editor, because a lot of times authors get told not to trust, because you get what you pay for if you're trying to do the lower rate so that we can increase their portfolio kind of thing. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that aspect. Is like a good editor is going to charge regardless of how many books they've done, just because of what their training has been and what experience they've done outside of like book editing. So just make yourself sort of a bullet points of your experience and what you can do, and put that out there, social media, website, whatever.
Yeah. And let's see. Follow-up question for Vivian. How do you separate your editorial voice and your authorial voice, or do you? Did you really do you?
I don't know if I
I don't think I do. I think it's the same voice in my head. I mean, there may be different character voices, but they're all me.
Yeah, same.
So I read a lot of arcs, and occasionally an author will obviously not be will be a non-native English writer. The work is so poorly written that it's hard to even understand what's happening in the story. What advice should a reviewer give to an author that won't discourage them from writing?
That's hard. You don't want to squash anyone's spirits. You just kind of want to point them in the direction maybe of some tools they could use.
Yeah.
AI is a really good place to start things like Grammarly. Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that would have to be the best one, I think.
And gentle wording, being honest with what's the hiccup in their writing,
Like I have trouble staying in the story. Maybe try something like this.
I'm just looking through the questions, see if anybody's added any other ones.
It's kind of hard to mention those things to a non-native English speaker, because they don't know what they don't know, and they could just take it as critical and like you said, crush their dreams. But they at least should know that, hey, this particular story is has some deficiencies, and maybe you try to, like Ellie said, give them some resources to try, but definitely let them know. somehow, so that they're not going out in the world and thinking they have this great product when it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I've known some authors that also took on a more collaborative approach and took on like a co-author, then someone who is of that language that could really work deep with them, rather than trying to employ an editor to do the same thing at an expensive rate, perhaps.
Yeah. All right. I mean, some Anton says, what if they're better off writing in their own language and then using a good language converter? I was just wondering that myself. Like, do you just like copy paste the whole thing and then put it in Google Translate? That would be terrible. I would imagine that would
Yeah, I
suck.
think there are better ones out there than just Google Translate. But,
Oh yeah, I know.
but yeah,
I'm a trickster, but yeah.
that might make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there could be ESL tools, which is true. That's what
We're talking a lot about slang, though, when you get in the area of erotica and kinks, right? Like some of those words do not. I was studying with some people from Iceland, asking them just simply what the word was for drunk. And it was the translation was to fall on one's ear. And so that would not work with certain languages.
I figured Iceland had 50 words for drunk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to be choking someone's actual chicken unless you're going to cook it.
It's a different story.
Yeah.
I have a question for some of the authors that are on the panel with us today. Is finance the strongest consideration, or what are some of the other things you consider when you choose a proofreader or an editor or even a beta reader to work with?
Yeah, for myself, so I went to a couple of editors for the mainstream novel that I published last year. I'm a member of our kind of statewide writers association, so I was able to get some fairly inexpensive editing help. For any of the erotica I've written, it's really a hobby. I mean, I want it to be good. I want people to enjoy it, but because I'm not going to be out there promoting it to the extent that it's going to get a huge amount of readers. I'm not going to pay, for an editor for that. Just doesn't make sense financially.
So we had another question, and I love this one. Any tips for a writer who's worried that they might take editing feedback a little too personally? And let me tell you, I can answer this one because I dealt with this. So when I first started writing, I was shit. Like I'm still shit. But Eliza read some of my stories and was like, "Hey, can we work on this together?" And we started working it out. And it was tough, man. Like I would literally watch her edit my stories, and dude, it was a ball kicker. It really was. But I mean, but watching her edit my stuff helped me learn some of the things I needed to learn and got me to where I am today. So it is hard to be edited, and it is hard to be corrected. I mean, obviously, growing up, that's just the way it is. But yeah, you have to trust someone to help you. And,
you also, like someone over here said, being able to take feedback is a skill, and to take a breath and set emotion aside. I find I don't do developmental editing, but for like developmental and line editing, where it's more critique, I guess developmental would be like a critique of the story itself, is where a lot of authors get like their feelings hurt about it because they put so much of themselves into their characters that it can feel like a personal attack, and that's not what it is. But it's hard to like separate that, so you really have to be able to just like step back and look at it as if it's not your book, it's not your life story, it's just a different book that you are helping somebody go through the edits on, almost. Like you just have to be able to step back from it in that sense.
I was just going to add,
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, this is where having the right editor is important, because person and you can trust that their words are not to cut you down, but to make you better or make your writing better. So if you're able to make that connection with someone, then it won't feel like they're attacking your work, and it will feel like you are getting positive, even if it's criticism, positive criticism to make your story better.
Yeah. I was going to say, Kristen and Ezra, they said, try looking at a book as a product. And yes, you have to. This is your baby. You've been working on it for months, a year, whatever. But it is a product that you want to sell. Let someone else look at it. I mean,
if you're not ready for an editor to look at it and not like some parts of it, are you ready for a reader to look at it and not like some parts of it?
hell no, you're not. Well, I want to thank everybody for showing up today and checking us out. Remember that word was cowboy. I don't know who chose that. Probably me.
Doesn't sound like.
It sounds like something I would say. Yeah, and so
Thank you for the panel.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
The
It
next
was
panel,
great.
it starts in about 15 minutes. It'll be the LGBTQ inclusion is the best. At 4:10, J.A. Martin will be in the reading lounge. So make sure you take note on that scavenger hunt word that I said earlier and submit it for another chance to win. Giveaways will start at 4:45 Central Time. You must be present to win. Make sure when you're leaving the breakout room that you click leave room and not leave meeting. I really appreciate you guys being here today. Eliza, it's
Thank
always a
you.
pleasure. Gabriela Lizette and Ellie Desyre, I'll see you on the flip side.